Yes. What's good in Soccer We Trust YouTube fam? Another episode, another incredible guest. It's our former U.S. men's national team teammate and current LAFC head coach, Steve Cherundolo. So keep hitting that like and subscribe button if you haven't already so that we can continue to bring you some of the biggest names in American soccer. Yes. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Claudia Reyna's favorite podcast in Soccer We Trust. I'm Jimmy Cream Cheese Conrad alongside Hollywood Heath Pierce and Charlie Chuckwagon Davies. And today, we are thrilled to welcome one of our favorite ever teammates for the U.S. men's national team, but also one of our favorite people in the game who just happens to be the head coach of the Red Hot and probably the favorites of MLS, LAFC, Steve Cherundolo. But before we bring him on, Hollywood, what are you going to ask him? Because we could go so many different directions with Mr. Sven. That's my nickname for him, Sven. What do you say? What are you thinking?
Well, probably first ask why him and I had the same realtor. I knew that he moved back, but he hasn't reached out for maybe just like a few tips on the area or, maybe a coffee once in a while, something like that. Very similar to the Julian Lescott situation with Jimmy Conrad. I'm just wondering, like, is he an ex-teammate or is he a friend? We're going to find out today.
I love that. Chuck, what do you want to talk to him about?
Just his development as a manager. He's basically been groomed working with youth, reserves, now first team with Las Vegas Lights, now to LAFC. Just the trajectory of his career.
All right, cool. Well, without further ado, it's time for the tale of the tape. Standing 5'6" tall, weighing a svelte 152 pounds. It's the pride of Mount Carmel High School in San Diego, California, who played one season at the University of Portland before making the move to Hanover in Germany, where he represented the club for so long, notching 370 appearances in total. His nickname was the Mayor of Hanover. He also registered 87 caps for the U.S. men's national team, playing in 2 World Cups, and being lucky enough to be a teammate with all of us before retiring in 2014. And he's been brainwashing the next generation in the coaching world ever since. Though I would be remiss if I also didn't mention that he's cute as a button. It's Steve Cherundolo! Sven, great to see you as always. First question, you've had this illustrious career, but I'm sure people just walk up to you and be like, yo, what's Gareth Bale like?
Yeah, I get that a lot. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, guys. You all look fantastic. We could have just retired yesterday. Nobody would have ever known, especially with that full head of hair, Heath, looking amazing.
Thank you so much.
And to answer your question first, Heath, definitely friend. Okay.
Yes. Well, all right, guys, I'm out. Thanks for having me. You can just shut me down now. I don't have any more questions.
Charlie, we'll get into the progression later.
Okay.
But yes, exciting times at LAFC with Gareth. Also, always interesting with Carlos, and obviously a fantastic guy to coach and have around the locker room with Giorgio Chiellini. So a lot going on at LAFC right now.
Steve, I listened to you on a broadcast when you were doing some of the Bundesliga broadcasts while you were still in Germany, and I remember hearing something distinctly when you were talking about young players, and that how sometimes when you have too many young players, there is the ebb and flow of the young player. And that's not a very popular opinion right now because we all just want young players all the time, but don't want to actually talk about what comes with having young players on the field. What's it been like for you now having to manage what I'm sure is an important part of the future of the club at LAFC with player development and the young players coming through, but also having to balance that with getting results in the now?
Well, I think there are some great examples out there in Europe and around the world. Clubs who are trying to win championships always find a good balance between young and experienced. And clubs who are purely focused on developing players and selling them on can be a little heavier on the young side, and that's fine. My experiences in youth soccer, but also last year with the Lights and just observing for many years, if it's too strong on the young side, it's a bit of the blind leading the blind. We were all young players at once, and we did not have answers for solutions. And if you have too many of those players on the field at once, it looks a little disconnected. And I think experienced players really help those situations to connect the dots, but also to keep the group and the organization well balanced, which is what we're trying to do at LAFC currently.
Well, you're top of the Western Conference, top of the league, Supporters Shield right now. In your first season, what's been the low point so far? There can't be too many. And what have you been most proud about when managing this group?
Yeah, I guess low points would be injuries. to a few key guys. Brian Rodriguez has come up with a few bad injuries this year, who was in very good form and seemed to have kind of turned the corner in his career and figuring out how to become a prolific attacker and not just an excellent 1v1 attacker. And so those would be the low points. I'll be honest, during preseason, things were not clicking right away. And in your first season, I obviously was sweating bullets. So that was not fun. And then finally, in our final preseason match against Red Bulls, things did click, and we haven't missed a beat since. But it's been a pretty cool journey so far.
So, Steve, talk to us about the transition going from Las Vegas Lights coach to now LAFC, taking over for Bob Bradley, obviously a very respected and highly successful coach in the American soccer system. In terms of how long do you think it took for you to win the guys over that you actually knew what you were talking about? Obviously, you have your playing career. There's going to be some instant credibility there, playing in a couple World Cups, but you still have to prove it as a coach. Was there a moment where you're like, these guys got it? They know what I want, and they also are showing me that respect and are going to go out there and execute?
Absolutely. That moment was in Palm Springs in preseason. It was, I believe, like the 36th minute against the Red Bulls, where they figured it out. They turned it on. It was during a water break. And ever since then, we haven't looked back.
Are you shitting me? 36th minute of that? Like, that's real? Or are you just messing with me right now?
No, maybe the 34th. But it was definitely in the first half of that game at the water break. And
what happened though? Like, what was just something you said, or something that like you were working on and the team shape just kind of clicked and everybody got it?
I think it was a mix between, it was our final preseason match. Guys were tired. Our way of playing is physically exhausting and fast paced. And I think they caught their legs. They got their legs back. And it was also against the team, Red Bulls. They were all over us in the first 15 minutes, 20 minutes, as they usually do. I think my team was just sick of it, and they had enough. And then they turned it on. They shifted another gear, and we've been in that gear since.
Let's talk about you in the technical area on the field, right? You come from your playing career, which means you've made a lot of friends. I'm sure a lot of frenemies along the way. Now the coaches are getting younger. You're on the touchline.
He's only talking about outside backs, like him and Johnny Bornstein. It's like ongoing battle.
My question is,
way to go, Johnny boy.
Have you? You know, I see these coaches that I know they know each other, and I see sometimes some dirty looks, some tough conversations, screaming and fighting at each other. And you know what it's like to compete on the field. But now, across from many coaches, have you gotten into any arguments yet? Has any one coach annoyed you with the antics? Have you annoyed anybody else? Have you gotten into that yet? Knowing that, I know you would be the same in Germany, but in the U.S., knowing so many people in history, have you gotten into that yet?
Oh, that's a good question. I think you know the answer to this. I cannot say a whole lot, but I'm actually quite surprised and happy. So far, there has been very little chatter back and forth, and most of the coaches, and maybe I'm getting the benefit of the doubt because I'm new, and there are some pre-existing relationships which I'm kind of backing on. There isn't really any bad blood, and it's been actually quite nice with some of our bigger rivals here in LA, with Portland, Seattle, obviously the Galaxy. I wasn't a part of the past, and so it's maybe a chance to.
What a crap answer! What a crap answer!
Over a leaf and
out one person, and we'll move on. You know, just out one, and we'll move on.
In terms of coaches you've played under, like, how would you define your style? What have you taken from managers that you've played for, and how would you say you have had success with LAFC? Like, what defines you as a manager?
There's definitely some influences throughout my playing career. I think the first one I'll mention for sure, Clive Charles at Portland, helped me, and he knew me back then, helped me become somewhat of a responsible young man, as best as he could. And I grew up in 3 semesters, 2 seasons. You got that wrong, Jimmy. 2 seasons as a pilot.
2 seasons.
Oh, wow. That's a first.
Sorry.
I'm surprised you're admitting that, Steve, because remember how cool it was to leave early back then? Like, that was the only thing you wanted to do. So, like, if somebody said you left earlier, you just take it.
I left early, but I needed the 3 semesters there. I wasn't ready before that, and Clive had a big portion of that. And then moving to Germany, one of my first coaches, Ralph Rangnick, opened my eyes tactically. Was very smart. The way we played and were promoted in Hanover was just a full-on attack, press, attack, very high-paced game, and we tore up the 2nd division, which opened my eyes to a new way to play. Or a different way to play, I should say. And then a few other coaches, my national league coaches, Bruce, an incredible manager of personalities and characteristics and roster building. Bob, obviously a tactician, and his attention to detail and his dedication was incredible. And another German coach, a guy by the name of Evad Lehnen. You know that guy here?
I do.
I would say his emotional IQ was fantastic, the way he managed the group and the different nationalities and personalities within the team. And so put all that together into one pot, coupled with my own characteristics and personality of trying to be even-keeled and relaxed, but I can also smile and enjoy myself.
Some good banter in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But hold on, Steve.
Hey,
hold on.
Jimbo's rattled. Look
Yeah.
at him. He's absolutely rattled.
What I'm not buying right now though is that you're taking all the goods from all these coaches, but there has to be some things that you're like, I man, do that.
He wants you to throw some people under the bus.
Yeah, listen, you're gonna give me
clearly looking for drama.
You're gonna give me a name today.
Thank you,
somebody. You know what I mean? No, but I mean, for me, when I talk about where I'm at, and we talk about a lot on the show, a lot of our conversations are about things we would do differently, right? Not necessarily the things that you take, because that's all part of it, but things that you're like, oh man, I personally had a lot. What I felt were worse coaches than good coaches, and the few that I had, you're like, man, Clive Charles is one where it was in college, but I still look at it as the best coach I ever had. I mean, were there things that you had experienced? And obviously coming through Germany during the period that you did, there was a lot of disciplinary type, kind of old school thinking around coaching. Was there anything that you, not necessarily people, but things that you decided, I don't want that to be part of my style?
Absolutely. It's a valid point. 2 names definitely.
Names.
The guy by the name of Horst Emmentraut was sort of an alpha male and came over the top. And his leadership approach was something I will not do and I disagree with. His motivator is fear to install in players, which may work short term, but long term it will implode, and you will definitely find yourself without a job. And so that is not something that is also suitable to my personality and characteristics. So that is definitely something I learned not to do. And then another coach, it was his 2nd time around at Hanover, Peter Neuruhr, was a good guy, but we literally did the same thing every week, every day. And it just got too monotonous. And I promised myself when I become a coach to make sure players are enjoying training. Environment is one that they can learn, they can improve, they can also work. And to keep it interesting, and also to have them laugh. Good players are happy players, and vice versa. So those are some of the lessons I learned.
So Sven, when we were teammates, I always asked, when are you coming back? When are you going to come back to the States? When are you going to come back and play in MLS? You're like, well, whenever there's a team in San Diego, because that's where I want to go back and finish everything up. But now you found yourself in coaching, and you got your coaching licenses, your UEFA badges. You could have coached, and you were coaching in Germany for some time. So I'm sure there was some possibilities and some ambition to coach in the Bundesliga. But you did ultimately come back, and now you find yourself at LAFC. What was the draw to come back to MLS and help grow the game here?
I had followed LAFC since day one. John and I were friends, and still are, even though we are working very closely together. We can maintain a friendship outside of the office.
You're talking about, just for context, you're giving John Thornton the GM of.
Correct. And so John and I kept in touch, and I followed the MLS always because I anticipated coming back to play, and it was an interesting league, and a lot of my friends lived and worked here. So it was something I followed closely. Didn't get to play due to knee injury. But anyway, John and I kept in touch, loved LAFC, came to visit them in 2019. And thought, wow, this has real potential. My path in Europe wasn't finished yet. And so it was sort of, yes, there was an avenue with LAFC, but I also felt that my path in Germany was coming to an end. I had finished my license. I had taken my first steps as a coach. I wasn't too fond of how coaches are perceived and treated in Germany, and this is not something that I particularly wanted to be involved in. It's really more of like musical chairs, and it's very politicized, and you don't really have time to develop an idea or a philosophy. You're just pumping out results, and that's a little different in the United States. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of pressure in LA, and we want to win at LAFC, but we still have a little time and the resources to develop an idea. And that was very attractive to me. So after John called, I said, all right, that's the place for me. And on top of it all, as we know, our kids are getting older, and my girls are at an age where it's the right time to move them, for them to understand where dad's from and to grow up in the United States for a few years.
You were a single club guy for your entire career. It doesn't really exist at any level, you know, and you have a few, usually the club legends like yourself that stay or stick around. Do you think that was that a purposeful thing? I know you had plenty of opportunities to leave throughout the years through the mini contracts you signed. And do you think that the mentality of the player with just globalization and access to new ideas and opportunities has sort of changed the loyalty of when you're asking somebody to, especially in MLS with trading and things like that, to live for the crest and give everything? Do you feel like that's a different challenge here than maybe in Germany?
Absolutely. I don't think playing for one club is for every person. I think you need the right personality and characteristics. So it's interesting. Giorgio was here, who spent, I think, most of his career in one club. Very similar approach to the club you're playing for. So he is all in, and that's it. I mean, every day opens up, and he's wonderful in the locker room, in the meal room. He's here all day. It's like he's been here since day one. And I think that mentality, that openness is very important if you want to stay at a club for your entire career. So that was my approach to Hanover. It was a conscious decision from day one to engulf myself in the culture and the language and in the club and the community. I was able to do that. But yeah, you're right. Along the way, there were options to move. And, you know, I think it would be not honest of me to admit, you know, this is also a business. But I approached my contract extensions in a similar way, where there were 3 questions that needed to be answered with yes, and it was, am I still developing as a player? Am I still developing as a human being? Am I still happy in the city? And is the club still developing financially as well and growing? And I was able to answer those questions with yes at each contract extension, and so I knew that was the right place for me.
In terms of your relationship with Thorrington, which you touched on, how involved were you with the signings? Because it's very easy to be like, you're the head coach, stay in your lane. I'll get the players and you manage them. When you hear Gareth Bale as a possibility, Chiellini, were you having conversations with them to try and convince them as well, or was it just floated by you to see how that would fit with the squad? I'm just very curious as a manager. Now you can attract the best talent in the world. LA, it's a very desirable city, and you have built an incredible team. What does that process look like?
Yeah, the process started summer when the club and Bob decided no longer to work together. I was asked by John and management to help out with the roster building for the new season prior to becoming the coach. And I was here last year. I understand the philosophy. I understand how Bob worked. I understand where the club came from and where they're going. And so it was only natural to help out in those decisions. And I can tell you here, every decision is discussed over and over again amongst the entire technical staff and management. So we were very hands-on, and everybody has a say. Of course, in the end, a decision needs to be made, but everybody's opinion is heard, and I think it's the right way to do things, and it will minimize mistakes. And I think that's what we've been able to do this year.
Did you have a conversation with them before the signing or no?
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Okay, so obviously you're very persuasive, Sven. Let's put on your pundit hat. And let's talk about Ricardo Pepe. He goes over to the Bundesliga, very similar to you, at a similar age. But knowing what you know about Augsburg, where you're like, no, Ricardo Pepe, not Augsburg, like any club in Germany but that one, you know, because they just seem to barely survive every single year. And not to the surprise, I mean, maybe to the surprise of some, but he's struggling. He's struggling to adapt. What advice would you have for a Ricardo Pepe or any young player that's going over to the Bundesliga or currently playing in the Bundesliga about how to survive that particular league, given your experience?
I think it's very important when you're in Germany to remember the glass is half full, to be positive. Going over there with such a big transfer fee to a team who needs a goal scorer, there's a lot of pressure on from day one. And so, I think he's a very good player, and I think he can be that goal scorer for them. But it may not be from the start. He may need some time. And so for him in that transition, it's really important to stay positive, to find life away from football in the city of Augsburg, which is a beautiful city. So it's going to be important for him to enjoy life, to be able to be effective on the field as well. To stay positive, to stay focused, because it can be a very demanding job in Germany in the Bundesliga, with the media, with the fans, and just walking around the street. He'll feel the pressure as well. So stay positive, and goals will come.
See, I remember when we were playing in the national team together, and we spent some time together in Germany. One of the things that you had told me, and it's still I still remember it to this day, was just about how to navigate training, right? And that you can't, especially when you're young, you have the inconsistencies that we all know to be true about young players. But one thing you had said to me was on days that you're just not feeling it, that you're tired, that you're not focused or whatever, you're just like, play simple and just blend in. Like, don't stand out as the best player and then as the worst player. And I remember that being like a revelation for me, because when you're young, you want to stand out, you want to be the best every training, but sometimes it just doesn't work, right? Sometimes you're like, it's not just about your legs or your mind. It's all got to come together every single day in an intense environment, especially in the Bundesliga. It was really tough. So one, thank you for that, because it helped me. Not as much as I thought it would help me, but it helped. Because I was still worse than I was good more often than not, and that's just hard to do every day. It's just blend in. But for you now working with young players, do you see a different level of quality or consistency in the young player in the U.S., considering the pool is getting bigger, more players challenging themselves in different situations? I mean, what's your take on the modern young player coming out of the U.S. right now?
Thank you for remembering that, and I still use that with some of our players. I recall a conversation with Fall a couple of weeks ago, Fall and Baca, and it's the same. So I'm asking players to give us more sevens, less tens, and less ones. Let's just play consistently well, and that trickles into training as well, because how you train, you will play. And that's a challenge for a younger player, which is why you need some experienced players to help out with that. I would say the younger players nowadays are a little further along in their tactical development than maybe we were, but maybe lack in other categories. So I think there's lost track a little bit of the basic technical work: heading, tackling, passing, long balls. Everything is becoming a little too technical and too detail oriented, and then the basics is what kind of goes away, because we don't spend enough time with that. And that would be my fear moving forward. But I would say the general tactical foundation that players have is more than we had.
Well, real quick, sorry, Charlie. What are the basics that you talk of, just for context of what you think is going away or not being done enough?
Look, it's very simple. Timing on headers, set pieces, defensive headers. We're not allowed to at a certain age in youth soccer, and you will see players losing that. I've been watching, observing this in Germany for a number of years. Simple striking the ball, a long ball. Simple way of passing. Everything has to be the outside of your foot. Everything has to be complicated now. It doesn't have to be. It can still be very simple and effective. And I think that part of this game is dwindling a little bit.
Listen, Steve, I blame YouTube and Ronaldinho highlights set to EDM music from like Eastern Europe. But go ahead, Charlie. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. I would say, you are approaching one of the deepest teams in MLS history, like an absolute loaded squad, and you still have an open DP spot. I know the transfer window closes tonight. Could we anticipate another major signing?
Charlie Davies trying to break news on the pod here.
No, not at all. I'm just saying, is that a possibility? Do you
not at all.
anticipate maybe having a major signing, or do you feel like you can win with this group? Of course you can win with this group.
Where's John Thorrington right now? Is he hanging out? Like, he's got his feet up on the desk next to you, or is he sweating?
Is
over there. He's just in the office. John is very busy today,
Okay.
and so we are working hard to improve the team, regardless of where we are in the table. If we feel that a player on the market who would like to come here and play, that's very important for us. After conversations with players, I really need to hear from players that they're excited about what we're doing and excited to have a role in what we're doing. If all of those pieces are in line, then we will improve the team. Absolutely.
Such a professional answer. I love it. She's so polished. She's so polished.
Blink twice if Isco is a target.
All right, Trent. So what we like to do here, part of the tradition with all of our guests, is to get some personal stories, some memories that you might have had. And the one that we always ask is, who is your favorite player that you ever traded a jersey with? And then conversely, did you ever have a regret of not trading a jersey with somebody you played against?
Ooh, yeah, good question. Favorite player I traded a jersey with was at the 2006 World Cup.
Ooh, nice. You're my teammate for that one. I love that.
With Del Piero, Alessandro Del Piero.
Ooh,
After the game in Castbox in Italy. So that was an amazing experience. Nobody believed me, but he wanted mine. I'll just throw that out there.
Oh yeah.
no, ask Jimmy about his debacle with the Italians.
Yeah, Jimmy.
Yeah,
Jimmy lives in regret daily.
I got Pirlo. What are you talking about? I got Pirlo.
Yeah, sure.
So Sven got Del Piero's. But any regrets? I mean, you've played in a lot of games, 87 caps, or even with Hanover, played in some big games.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anybody that you regretted not getting? You obviously got to play against some great Bayern teams, and
maybe you hesitated. So
hesitated.
And stole it.
Yeah.
Hey, before you answer, Steve, real quick. Steve, before you answer. This jersey, we were about to get relegated with Hansa Rostock, and Steve and I changed shirts, and I went out to the half line, and we were talking, and the newspaper called me Plaudertasche, which is, Steve, what's the direct translation? Like gossiper, and things are going bad. But I got this shirt under duress, and it was worth it, just so you know the circumstances around that. Apparently, you're not supposed to trade shirts if you're heading on down to the second division.
Very unfair journalist with you there, Heath. Don't pay any attention to that, especially from Rostock. No regrets. I would say I'm more of a shy guy when it came to trading jerseys, and I was more interested in trading jerseys with players I have a personal relationship with. There was really I only asked a few times for the star players. One was Del Piero, obviously. Clarence Seedorf was a jersey I really like.
That's a massive one.
Massive player. And then a guy who I hated but loved was Franck Ribéry, because he ran by me pretty much every time he wanted to. But a great player to play with. But no, I wasn't too disappointed because I didn't ask very much, and I had a lot of close friends in the Bundesliga, and those jerseys were more interesting to me than the stars.
Okay, one more question before we let you go then. Once you become national team coach, will you put me, Heath, and Charlie on your coaching staff? That's all we really want to know.
Technical staff.
I think having a big staff is very important. And it's really important to have experts in each field, and I'm positive we'll find a field for everybody. So.
That's what we love to hear. Steve Cherundolo, everybody. Give it up for Sven. Best of luck to you, our friends, and we wish you the best of luck with LAFC as well. You're the heavy favorites to win the league. No pressure. Steve Cherundolo! All right. We're going to take our first and only break of In Soccer We Trust. When we come back, we're going to break down Steve's interview, anything that we thought, obviously incredibly insightful, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what we saw in the Leagues Cup, including LAFC's 0-0 draw, or actually we went to penalties against Club America. Don't go